How did a group from the industry's largest machine manage to feel so fundamentally outside of it? Young creator crew, the DIY spirit of the creator economy. Pulling attraction left and right, from local stages straight to global stars. Before the debut, there was the DNA. The group is a collection of distinct artistic histories that learned everything from scratch inside a company practice room. Martin, the 6'3" Korean-Canadian leader, is a production prodigy whose influence was felt long before the public knew his name. His innate understanding of track, structure, and modern hip-hop cadence provided the group with an internal compass for their sound. James, the group's performance pillar, brought a deep understanding of movement, combining his international ice hockey background and taekwondo training to create a high-impact dance style. The lineup is completed by Juhoon's sophisticated R&B sensibilities, Seonghyeon's gritty vocal tone honed through over 100 pre-debut demos, and Keonho, the maknae and visual center with the background of a competitive swimmer. Their origin story gets even more compelling when you look at the credits. Martin and James were already hitmakers of the fifth-generation sound before they could publicly claim it. Martin helped produce massive tracks like TXT's Deja Vu and Miracle, and ILLIT's breakout hit Magnetic, while also writing and composing for ENHYPEN's Outside. James was equally contributing behind the scenes, choreographing the point dances for Deja Vu, Miracle, Magnetic, Tic Tac, and Cherish. 4 out of 6 of these tracks went viral for weeks, with Magnetic literally kickstarting ILLIT's fame and Deja Vu, becoming one of TXT's most successful releases. This context proves they operated as industry professionals long before they debuted as idols, giving their creator crew title an undeniable, verifiable weight. It completely separates them from the general rising groups who rely entirely on an A&R board to find their identity. This internal leadership structure allows BIGHIT to act as a facilitator rather than a micromanager, a rare dynamic in a field known for its top-down control. By the time the world heard their first note, CORTIS had already mastered the mechanics of the machine they were about to disrupt. I just gotta get it, watch me go. The world's first taste of their sound came through the pre-release track Go, a high-velocity introduction that set the tone for their creator crew identity. While the industry expected a polished introduction, CORTIS used this pre-release track to showcase a frantic, rhythmically complex sound that mirrored their energy. On the 18th of August 2025, when CORTIS delivered the official debut single, What You Want, their debut track felt like an act of rebellion against the hyper-clean aesthetic of the 2020s. The music video, filmed in Los Angeles, was like a group of friends who had hijacked a production set and started doing it their own way. The styling of everyday vibe that made them feel like actual teenagers who happened to enjoy making music shows relatability. Propelling their debut EP, Color Outside the Lines, into the Billboard 200 at number 15, an accomplishment their peers had not matched in such a short time frame. What you want? Meanwhile, the group's live stability is impressive. Just 2 weeks after their debut at the release party, they performed an entire set list plus 2 encores without a single voice crack, all while executing incredibly difficult, stamina-draining choreography. As the fifth generation took hold, a common criticism surfaced, a perceived lack of hunger among Big Four rookies. With the safety net of massive corporate backing, many felt new groups were coasting on brand recognition rather than showcasing raw performance ability. CORTIS, however, became the exception. CORTIS brought back a chaotic, spontaneous energy. They played with the format of constantly interacting with each other and the camera in real time. This hunger to perform, to actively engage with the audience rather than quietly execute a routine served as a vital point. While CORTIS definitely connects with older K-pop fans who miss the personality-driven, high-energy debuts of previous generations, their approach is arguably more aligned with Gen Z's cultural DNA. Their chaotic and spontaneous nature mirrors the unfiltered authenticity that younger fans crave. Essentially, they've taken the gritty performance standards of the second generation and repackaged them with a modern, internet-savvy personality that speaks directly to the Gen Z desire for human connection. But here is where things get complicated, because doing things differently inevitably invites scrutiny. The label of self-produced is a heavy title in K-pop, and for CORTIS, it has become a massive point of contention. Critics often point to the presence of seasoned writers in their credits, noting that member names often appear at the end of the list, leading to accusations that their reputation is wildly exaggerated. However, their label explicitly markets them as a young creator crew that co-creates their material alongside other artists. Their own documentary footage clearly shows them collaborating directly, opting for teamwork over the illusion of working in a complete isolation. They are shown in writing camps in LA and bouncing ideas off veteran producers. For the members, this collaborative approach guarantees a personal addition in every part of the process. Not just given a beat and lyrics to sing, but to participate in shaping the final product, from the initial beat to the final mix. On their 100th day, the group officially solidified their growing community by announcing their fandom, CORE. This transparency fostered a deeper trust with their audience, who see the co-creation as a more realistic and honest form of artistry than the myth of the lone teenage genius. The fandom quickly became active participants in the ethos, forming a dedicated base that is notably larger internationally than domestically. This transparency has deep implications for the future of fan engagement. When CORTIS releases a making-of vlog, they don't hide the struggles or the disagreements in the studio. They show the friction that comes with true creation. This honesty has built a shield against the token stan culture, the culture of supporting a group solely to hate and drag on a rival group. This unwavering loyalty allowed CORTIS to maintain high engagement numbers despite the inevitable backlash that comes with rapid popularity. That is how they work differently.
여러분 모습이 좋아하시죠?
While the creator crew was busy building a sanctuary for their fans online, the industry's elite were forced to take notice of the numbers they were pulling. At the 2025 Mama Awards, CORTIS took home Best New Artist.
수상자는 코르티스.
A milestone reached just 102 days after their debut.
Our fans are biggest power, and so this is the first time I'm calling out to our fans on this stage. CORE, we love you.
They also performed a high-octane rock rearrangement of Go and Fashion that forced the industry to acknowledge their live performance edge. This win kick-started a historic sweep. They followed their Mama success by winning Rookie of the Year and Best Performance at the 2025 Asia Artist Awards. During the year-end festivals, they continued to disrupt the polished norm. At the 2025 Music Bank Global Festival in Japan, they stunned the crowd with an intense live cover of BTS's Mic Drop. By the time they claimed their third Rookie of the Year trophy at the 40th Golden Disc Awards in January 2026, the data backed up the hype. Their debut album had officially surpassed 1.38 million sales, making them the only 2025 rookie group with a single album million seller. That transparent creator-over-idol approach rapidly translated into a series of undeniable global milestones. By early 2026, CORTIS had completely bypassed the traditional multi-year K-pop grind. Rather than starting with local music show wins and slowly trickling outward, their first major moves were entirely Western-facing. Sony Pictures Animation tapped them for the GOAT official soundtrack, placing their track Mention Me on a global track list alongside Jelly Roll and Ira Star being featured. This inclusion served as a strategic signal to the industry. CORTIS was positioned not as a niche K-pop group, but as a musical contemporary for the global mainstream. That early taste of commercial success immediately cascaded into historic live bookings that most groups spend half a decade chasing. On February 12, 2026, they headlined the NBA crossover concert series at the Los Angeles Convention Center, becoming the first Korean act to lead the series. They then followed this just days later by performing at the halftime show of the NBA All-Star Celebrity Game at the Kia Forum. To see a rookie Korean group commanding an American sports stadium with such ease suggested a level of preparation and stage presence that went far beyond simple rehearsals. Beyond the hype, their raw idol skills have earned them a reputation for vocal stability and intense synchronization. Martin frequently showcases his rap ability through freestyle vlogs and impromptu street performances in New York, as mentioned by a fan, giving the group a hip-hop credibility that is hard to manufacture. This on-the-ground presence in the West, performing in streets and small clubs, helped demystify them. The momentum culminated with the announcement of Lollapalooza 2026 Chicago, where CORTIS claimed a spot as the only male K-pop group in the lineup, proving they were rapidly translating into real-world touring power. These global success acts as a feedback loop, with their Western dominance making them more intriguing to the domestic Korean market, who some see them as a group that has already conquered the rookie world. With their international credibility firmly locked in, CORTIS returned to Korea in April 2026 to deliver their definitive musical manifesto with the release of the GREENGREEN EP. The release of REDRED was a massive pivot that demanded a full dissection. The lyrics mention green, which represents the aspiration, the group's goals and crossing boundaries, while red represents the rejection, everything they aim to avoid. Instead of building toward a traditional high-note climax, REDRED relies on a driving bass line and a chanted repetitive chorus that initially divided listeners with its abrasive rave intensity and relentless auto-tune, but the overwhelming chaos quickly became an earworm. Visually and physically, the REDRED Era was a game-changer. They performed on weekly music shows, prioritizing raw energy, unscripted ad-libs, and crowd interaction. The choreography featured the Palangui dance point, which is the flapping ear movement, and it exploded on short-form platforms, pushing the track to a #1 peak on Apple Music Korea and a top 50 spot on Melon. This organic traction was further fueled by endorsements from industry seniors, including TikTok videos of Jungkook and J-Hope participating in the challenge, which helped mainstream audiences get the experimental sound. The tracklist of GREENGREEN showcases a group that has mastered its own electric sound. TNT provides the EP's high-energy opening, setting a bold tone for their young creator identity. In contrast, Acai offers a lighter, synth-driven atmosphere inspired by their production days in LA, highlighting the group's ability to pivot into melodic, feel-good territory. Blue Lips pushes their emotional boundaries, utilizing a vulnerable raw vocal delivery that revisits Martin's pre-debut trainee days. The EP is rounded out by Young Creator Crew, a rhythmic track that leans into the group's collaborative spirit, and Wasup, which cements their signature intentional rawness with addictive, unrefined melodies. This era would officially move CORTIS past the one-hit wonder conversation. With over 2 million stock pre-orders, they solidified their status as a top-tier rookie. For many, the track Red Red was a jarring departure from their previous releases, leading some critics to initially shudder at its obnoxious brand and aggressive rage hip-hop sound. Skeptics pointed to the incessant auto-tune and repetitive melodies as evidence of a group that didn't care about traditional K-pop standards. However, that perceived indifference became the very thing fans and open-minded critics began to celebrate. The conversation shifted from questioning the relentless noise to praising the genius of the production, with many noting that the driving, Norwegian pop-inspired beat was simply too intense to ignore. Within the fandom, the song underwent a fascinating earworm evolution. Early listeners who claimed they hated the music down found themselves standing up and dancing by the end of the first minute. Cores began describing the track as a historic milestone, calling it the kind of song that would still be talked about 10 years later. The instrumental, described by some as a wild hybrid of New Order's Blue Monday and Fake Mink by Easter Pink, earned CORTIS a new level of respect for their risk-taking. This string of successes serves as a direct answer to the inevitable accusations of glazing. While some casual listeners argue it is too early to brand them as the absolute best, suggesting the hype is merely a byproduct of Big Hit's massive corporate machine, the chart numbers and the quality of the green tracks might just provide a concrete counter-narrative. If they can survive the hate by association that inevitably follows all hype groups and continue to produce music that feels personally authored, CORTIS is on a trajectory to become a massive global entity. They have already proven that creative freedom isn't a liability for a major label, but a massive asset and a breath of fresh air for a market that was starting to feel incredibly repetitive. CORTIS didn't invent authenticity, but they weaponized it at a moment when the industry was suffocating under its own polished perfection blueprint. Their rise and growth is the natural result of creators who decided the traditional lines weren't worth coloring inside of. They have managed to strike an incredibly rare balance between utilizing the massive resources of a global giant and maintaining the beating heart of a creator. By prioritizing the young creator crew identity, they have redefined what it means to be a modern idol. It's about the ability to think, to build, and to connect. As they look toward the future, the question is no longer whether CORTIS can succeed, it's how many other groups will try to follow the path they've cleared. In the end, CORTIS proved that the most perfect thing a group can be is human, messy, talented, and entirely coloring outside the lines.